They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Dead Air, a horror podcast.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dead Air, a horror podcast. Before we start the episode, I'd like to remind everyone to please check out the description of this episode on wherever you're listening from, be it Apple Podcasts or Deezer or Spotify. Check out the episode description and use the affiliate links that we have there so that you can keep this podcast up and running. And also, please follow us on our social media. So we do have a Facebook group that you can be a part of. So if you want to talk about horror shows and horror movies, please join our Facebook group, Dead Air, a horror podcast. We have a page of the same name, and we also have an Instagram that you can directly message if you have any questions or any suggestions for the podcast. Just let us know over there at Dead Air Pod. So today is a really exciting episode for all of us because we have a special guest from a different time zone, and that's not common. So different time zones for this guest. You may remember him from College Humor. He's a comedian, writer, director, and actor, and he had movies called Scare Me and Werewolves Within, and two movies that are coming up and streaming on Shudder, A Wounded Fawn and Blood Relatives. Everybody, let's welcome Josh Ruben. Hello, Josh. Welcome to our podcast.
Hello, good morning and good evening.
Yes. So happy to have you here.
Yeah.
And I know that you're going to be talking about your two movies in just a bit, but I was also told that you accepted 50 podcast invitations. I want to ask about that. So how
first of all, thank you. And also, why?
I mean, look, these are independent films, and you have to go on a bit of an independent press tour to get the word out there. And what's crazy is I'm noticing just as much, if not more, traction from doing, shows of really a guerrilla size, independent size, than I would if it was like a Variety article or Hollywood News or some sort of, standard press tour. Because the output is several times a day now. People will often, I've done probably, I want to say 15 or 20 at this point. I'm pretty much halfway done.
Amazing.
And those episodes come up sometimes the next day, 2 days after I do them, and then you're constantly outputting, and then their audiences are saying, if they hadn't heard of my previous work, looking at my previous work, or checking out Shudder, which is great. So that's why I did it. I'm actually kind of surprised it just pretty much capped at 50, which is plenty. But what I'm amazed at is that across the board, all the questions have been so thoughtful and insightful, and there really hasn't been too much overlap. And it's been great when there is overlap, because that's what happens on a standard press tour anyway. You answer, similar questions. But it's been really cool, mainly just to meet people too in the community and get to know, different folks and get a sense of their interview styles and such.
Okay, I am quickly deleting questions that might have an overlap.
No, you do not need to delete. You don't need to. It can be favorite color. It could be pant size, shoe size.
Then later you're gonna hear Chris say things like, "Oh, so what's your zodiac sign?"
Oh yeah, I'll get out. See, that's great. I haven't been asked that yet. Cancer, so June 30th, very sensitive.
Hey, Cancer too.
See?
Nice.
Yeah.
Whoa! Oh my God, water sign world.
You're aware. Are you that into it that you know your rising and your moon?
I am. Yeah, I think I'm a Scorpio rising and a Pisces moon. It's a lot of water. I know.
For the uninitiated, what does that mean?
It just means I'm a sensitive mama's boy. That's it. Just yeah.
That's pretty,
I love the self-awareness.
Pretty much a good recap of that whole thing.
Yeah, it's fine. Feed me, put me in a warm blanket, and then turn on Evil Dead 2. But
love it. Okay, so this came about. I just want to give a little context for everyone who's listening. From most of our listeners, obviously, are from the Philippines. So Josh gave out a blanket invite on Twitter saying that he wanted to talk about his 2 new movies on Shudder that are currently streaming right now. Again, if you have a VPN, you can access Shudder from here. He accepted a whole bunch of interviews. Hopefully, we won't repeat a lot of the questions that he's been experiencing for the past few weeks. Here's where we are right now. Should we talk about? Maybe we should talk about.
I want to ask a question.
Please go ahead.
Question. So, you started out as a comedian, of course, and then you ventured into horror. And we've had a lot of guests here kind of debate what horror is for them.
Yes.
So, some people say that, horror is psychological, or some say it's only the supernatural, or like slasher films are not horror films because it's not supernatural, things like that. So, we know that horror is a little subjective. What is it to you?
I mean, wow. I don't. Well, that's the great thing that I love about horror is that there isn't one kind, and it's a genre that you can apply to all of the other genres. I was just saying this the other day. You make a family film, like I just did in Blood Relatives. It's literally a father-daughter story, but we add the horror element to it. There's also a vampire story, and it's also got blood and guts. But you can apply it to a family story. You can apply horror to adventure. You can apply horror to comedy, but I mean, horror to me is taking any relatable issue, especially based in human need, desire, or vulnerability, especially fear, and just turning it up and manifesting that fear through a creature, through a supernatural entity, really through, it could be through anything. It could be through, I mean, they made a movie about a killer tire. I think called Rubber at some point. I mean, truly, you can turn it up and create allegory out of anything and make it horror. So for me, it's quite broad. I think when it's most effective is when there's a proper allegory there, and you really are saying something without it being like an on the nose message, or at least saying like, oh, this feels like, I don't know, it comments on the other, it comments on, my high school experience. It's just something that rings true to an actual human need, emotion, or vulnerability.
Sure. You know what? Because we do, that's a great question from Aaron, because we do ask this a lot of our guests, and out of that, we have come up with our own definition, which is basically, it's really, for us, it's really whatever horrifies you, and it's so broad, but it's so different for every person. We have had a guest come on and choose the film Irreversible, and that's her definition of horror. Yeah, sure. Right? I mean, it's horrifying. It's technically, no one would probably list that under, the genre, but it's, for her, it was absolutely terrifying. So for us, we have same thing. It's very broad. It's whatever is horrifying to you. That's what it is.
And it truly can be anything and everything. And that's what's so great about the genre and why the community is so big, because you can apply so much fantasy to it, and there's so much originality to be had. And it's also the tricky thing, especially as a filmmaker venturing into, what I'm hoping will be a lifelong career of it, or at least in part that's a genre I will continue exploring. There's so much that's been done. And so it's, everybody right now is talking about Barbarian, which I don't know if it's out in the Philippines, but it's a big movie that hit here in America. And it's because that is one of the more fresh takes and executions of a horror film. And now we're all, it's kind of great because our sensibilities are sort of so complex, and yet we're ready to take even broader, more interesting swings, I think, in the genre. And we're, there's actually commercial viability there, which is exciting.
What is Barbarian? Sorry, I don't know what that is.
Huge, wasn't it, Chris's?
It was on my top 3 of the year. Yeah,
it's many things.
Chris, you know everything horror. What is Barbarian? Can you please? I'm sure other listeners don't know too. So
you cannot define Barbarian. No,
I still have to see it, and I think it's better to come in blind, Aaron.
Yeah,
it's on Disney.
Don't watch any of the trailers. Don't read anything about it. Just just be surprised because there is
Also, I mean,
story
the trailer will tell you that will make you think that it's one thing, which is a girl goes into a house with a mysterious man who may not turn out to be something he says he is. And then there appears to be something in the basement. There appears to be people being dragged into the darkness by something, and yet you don't quite know what's going on. So that's I think how we all were lured into Barbarian. It's like, oh, okay, it's kind of a spooky house movie, and then like, oh, there's so much more.
Yeah.
In our territory, it's
so
in Disney Plus, Aaron, so it's on my...
Yes, you can watch it anytime. You'll love it. I'm telling you. I promise you.
It's on my to-watch list.
Yeah, Aaron is a big fan of the crowd pleasing scares. So yes, this is the movie for her. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, for sure. Since you brought up Barbarian, Josh, 2022 has been an excellent year for horror. I feel there have been so many standouts of like really a lot of like reboots, a lot of like we got a new Scream, we got a new Hellraiser, we got a new but then like a lot of original stuff came out. Do you have a favorite this year? You brought up Barbarian, but
I dug Barbarian quite a bit, but my favorite I think was there's a film called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yes,
Did that come out by an A24 film? Just basically a largely women ensemble, women-led film. Helena Rain, who's the filmmaker, really, really funny and really kind of brutal and skewering, especially of the slightly younger generation, of which I'm no longer really a part of. But it was like the TikTok generation and
They're on TikTok though.
Privilege.
Yeah.
It's but like the ones who like really know how to use it and value it to the point where like sort of like drives their social life. That one I really, really dug. There was another film I saw at a film festival here that was made I think last year, but it's gonna and played festivals in 2022, but it's gonna be a 2023 release written by the creator of Scream, Kevin Williamson, and it's called Sick.
I heard it's
Sick
great.
is so fucking good. It is so good. Yeah, it's great.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for that.
Yeah, that's actually like a fantastic slasher. Like, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I'd say Bodies probably my favorite this year. I mean, Barbarian was great too, but I think Bodies is my first love.
I have a question, Chris, if I can.
Sure.
Josh, you like mixing up, it's obvious from the films you make and the films you star in that you're into horror, but not just horror. You're also in for mixing other stuff up. Were there anything like any past movies that sort of influenced your choices for your filmmaking, or anything that influenced your own taste in films also from the past? Like,
oh my gosh. Oh, so I cut you off at the end there.
No, it's fine.
What you're saying from the past? Well, I mean, initially, what I just realized recently is that I'm very influenced by the look and style of early Barry Sonnenfeld, who did like Addams Family, and like early Coen brothers. Like he shot, I believe, Blood Simple, and he came out of that camp with the Coen brothers and Sam Raimi. So there's something about Barry Sonnenfeld at the heart that feels very. Wow. Kind of weirdly very Raimi. I think they all sort of learned from each other, or like I don't know who it was. It may have been Raimi kind of picking up from Barry Sonnenfeld and then kind of running with that, vice versa. But at least visually and pacing wise, I really enjoyed that, just in terms of like comedy and style. And then there were films like Tremors and Clue, and then eventually, I mean, you could say kind of all the standbys, Jaws and Nightmare on Elm Street. But I'm realizing that early Sonnenfeld, certainly early Coen brothers, really, really influenced me. If not, the work of cartoons that kept me laughing, Looney Tunes and stuff. I don't know. It's just the universal stuff.
That's so funny. I did a bit of reading before this call. I see a lot of people comparing Werewolves Within to kind of like Fargo. Is a Fargo creature feature.
That's how I pitched it to the actors. Like when they, because I was a first time filmmaker to many of them. Not many of them had seen Scare Me. Some of them did. And how I pitched those actors, it's like, look, I want to make Fargo by way of Amblin. I want to make like a Fargo Amblin movie. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening was we skewered even more sort of buoyant, because when you cast an actor like Sam Richardson, who's so funny and so
great.
so bright and wonderful, your ensemble, your lead especially, changes the whole tone of the film. So I imagined it sort of darker and even a little more esoteric, but then Sam came in and really brightened up the whole thing. And that affected, truly, it affected the edit. It affected the heart of the film. Like Sam has this almost like Tom Hanks likability about him that I think affected the heart of it and kind of brought that out, where I think I probably imagined it a little more nihilistic. And I think even Mishna, who wrote the film, saw that just a little bit, just like, was influenced more by The Thing and Among Us and what's The Thing and Among Us and like Clue. And I think, and I certainly wanted to go that sort of Fargo route, but I'm so proud of it.
It's a fantastic film. I love that you said The Thing, because that's exactly what I thought about. And everyone here knows that it's my absolute favorite movie.
The only movie he ever talks about.
The only movie I always talk about. Anyway. So Miguel kind of touched on it, like the films that influenced you. How about like in like a general sense, like what's your favorite era of horror? You've got the the 70s classics, you've got the 80s like splatter, you've got the 90s teen slasher, you've got the elevated horror. What do you think about that?
I think my formative years, just by nature of being an 80s kid and growing up in the VHS era, it was absolutely 80s influence. I think that's where I got and was inspired by comedic sort of villains like Freddy and bright, kind of colorful but brutal kills like in Friday the 13th, and ridiculous characters. But I've got such a soft spot because coming into my adolescence and growing up, finally becoming an adult-ish, a young man, to go to the theater and see, you could see Titanic one week, sure, but another week you can go see, a thriller like Arlington Road or The Edge, and then Scream comes out and eviscerates everything and everybody and changes your kind of high school experience. I Know What You Did Last Summer, like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Basically, Kevin Williamson's effect on my teenhood was massive. And all of our teenhoods, I think to that degree, it sort of influences the way that the way that you act, the buddies you want to hang with, you want to throw a movie night, you're more inclined to, to do that sort of thing. So I think it's an amalgamation of both for sure.
That's cool.
Scream is always my go-to, like, to get people together.
Yeah.
Scream. It's just a massive crowd pleaser.
It truly is.
Scary.
Really,
it's
really
funny.
Is.
It's proven the test of time. Have you seen the new one?
I've seen the new one. I know those filmmakers. I know Jasmine Savoy Brown, who is just incredible. I think Radio Silence is really killer, and I'm especially excited to see them push it in the second one. Like for them to go even bloodier, especially in New York City. Like being someone who grew up in and around New York City, I'm really thrilled to see what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and the fact that it's just like, it's extra gory. Like, yes, let's go for it. Absolutely. I want to know what it is. People love blood. Like people, especially with like these two movies I just did on a spectrum, Blood Relative is having the least amount of blood and Wounded Fawn being so bloody. It's just interesting to see like, oh, your audience is going to really respond. I know Miguel doesn't love too scary bloody stuff, but like people like that, right? I mean, like Chris, they go. I don't know what it is, but that seems to be the note. It's like people are just like, well, I want to.
Yeah, more.
Gotta go there. Maybe it's just the spectacle of it all. It's like why Terrifier 2 is exploding over here.
What did you think of that? I'm a huge fan.
I haven't seen either of them yet. But that's the thing I'm kind of getting at is like you're just noticing. I think that movie kind of broke through. An independent film shot for $250,000 made over $10 million at this point. Because it's made such a splash to that degree. It's wild.
Yeah. It's insane. It's it's not for everyone. I am a big fan because of just like it's just like furious filmmaking. It's just like, I'm just gonna, this is what I want to do. Damien Leone is just like, yeah, there's like no boundaries. It's incredible. But it's really not for everyone. Like Miguel would never watch this.
Anyway, you mean I can't even get tricked into watching it and then enjoy it? Like, is it all right? Got it.
It's not good. Yeah, no. We need to talk about the Wounded Fawn, but I want to segue. Like, I want to lead up to it, lead up into it, and that's definitely talking about you and your love for horror and comedy.
Yeah.
Because Wounded Fawn is not that, and that's what surprised me the most. But yeah, but like Scare Me, Werewolves Within, your background with College Humor, everything is comedy related. So I mean, like, what's the actually, we should have started with this. We start this with everyone. What's your horror origin story? Like, what is?
I mean, my sister introduced me to, they used to have Friday the 13th and like really intense horror movies on. It was like the 3:00 movie, like on Sunday. The Sunday 1:00 movie was like Friday the 13th Part 3. Or like, I remember Freddy's Nightmares, like the Freddy Krueger TV show, which was pretty scary, was on at a time where certainly like 6 or 7-year-old me would be able to at least be in my sister's room with my sister, and she'd like be showing it to me on her television. So my sister was my horror gateway, my horror gatekeeper.
Is she older or younger?
She's older. She's 9 years my senior. And she introduced me to Nightmare on Elm Street. I probably watched Dream Warriors first. That was probably a bit more like when I was finally able to watch it. That was probably the VHS that was around. But Freddy was the way in because he was almost like a cartoon character. There was something kind of like wickedly funny about him. So I would be a kid watching. I'd still watch Looney Tunes and An American Tail and stuff like that. But then you'd also see a guy who could stretch his arms out like a cartoon or do these kind of cartoonish things, yet with, a bloodbath ensuing, and make kind of magic happen. And I guess that was kind of the origin. Like most horror lovers talk about, discovering Raimi first or Giallo first. So for me, it was Freddy, and Raimi didn't come till much later, like eons later, when I was, in my 20s, I think.
What movie actually, because you said that you were attracted to Freddy because he's kind of comical. Did he scare you, or was it just you were just fascinated by the fact that this villain is
the spectacle?
It was definitely the spectacle element. He didn't scare me. Jason scared me. Jason, I think Friday the 13th 3 especially scared me because he was so hulking, and there was also something about the tone of that movie. There was a storm. I feel like there was a storm in every movie, but the thunder and lightning and wind and pitch black, and he's just this giant unkillable thing, and there was no personality there. But Freddy, I would draw him, and I would imagine having conversations with him, like you could talk to him, which is probably really freaky now in retrospect. Think of a 7-year-old being like, "Hi, Freddy, what's your favorite color?" "Red, bitch." And then I don't know. I think because there was a kind of a warmth there, like a wicked warmth, but a warmth.
Sure.
That's probably why.
There's a lot of intimacy between him and his victims. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being viscerally affected by some of the kills, like when I think it was Dream Master, when he wrapped he made the motorcycle sort of Cronenbergian Lee become part of that dude, ripping through his hands and wrapping around him and crashing and setting on fire and stuff like that. When those really, really gnarly kills, those Screaming Mad George, I think, who did the effects and stuff, that stuff really, really got me. But, and I'm sure I caught The Thing on cable even back then when, it was far less censored and was sort of jarred. But Freddy was the gateway.
Is there
Nice.
any kind of horror that you would not watch?
I could never watch. I don't want to say I could never watch Terrifier 2 because I weirdly I think that's more digestible than like the Human Centipede or Green Inferno. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't think I could do like such. I don't know why. Maybe Chris, you can speak to this, but I feel like the clips I've seen of Terrifier 2 just feel different, like even weirdly kind of less nihilistic than like Hostile.
Yes.
And right, like I think that's what. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just like something of the era or something.
Well, I've said this so many times on this podcast. Like that's the only genre I cannot take is torture porn. I'm not a fan of Saw and Hostel, and I think Eli Roth is an amazing director. But it's just not for me. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
But Terrifier 1, the first one is torture porn. It is definitely. Yeah. So that one's difficult. I'm not a big fan of the first one. The second one, there's a lot more release because there's a very defined character arc and there's a redemption arc and there's a big there's a big final girl setup which is the release is very good.
Okay.
Like it's not like everything like what I can't stand about torture porn is just how depressing it is. It's just like there's just no hope in the world, you know. So the second movie I think corrects all the mistakes of the first one. But it still retains all its like bite, all its teeth. Yeah.
It's amazing to see the Rotten Tomatoes score of the first one, which is green across the board, and then you look at the second one, and it's the same exact rating, 86%, 80% as Werewolves, which is basically, it could be a family film, or a film for teenagers, and then it's but the critics, but it's just funny. It's like it's rated, similarly. It's such a so much of a warmer reception from critics and audiences. But I'm sure your point, it's because of the point you're making.
There's a the whole concept of the final girl. There's you feel the release, you feel the redemption, you feel like finally he's fighting back, and there's you feel a little good at the end. That's cool. That's good. That's rad. Cool. Okay, so I want to talk about this. A lot of people say that horror and comedy are so similar because they've got the beats. You set up, and then you got the payoff. You seem to really balance that really well. How?
I think this is the thing that you're seeing a lot of comedians, really from John Krasinski, who does Quiet Place, which really has no humor, to Jordan Peele, who came from sketch comedy, and Zach Kreger, who's did Barbarian, also came from sketch.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had a comedy group way back when I started called The Whitest Kids You Know. They were a sketch group, and who's the other one? Oh, even Todd Phillips. The Joker isn't necessarily a horror movie, but Todd Phillips did Hangover movies. He comes from the comedy world, and here he comes out with the highest grossing DC movie, or maybe best rated DC movie of all time, and it's violent and all this stuff. So anyway, that's all to say. I think that comedians already are pushing boundaries, already have an inherent timing in them, especially with a comedic timing and a comedic rhythm. We all know there are certain things that we could do to make you laugh rhythmically. Like that just comes in it weirdly just kind of happen. It's just kind of inherent. It's in your bones. You're born with it. And so because we're master observationists, or at least we have to observe and we have to mimic and we have to hold the mirror up to social issues and such. You take that into genre, you take that into comedy. Now you've got your inherent comedic rhythm and your joke telling skills, but you also have your skewering sensibility to be able to see all of the flaws and all of the kind of idiosyncrasies of humanity, and then you can skewer it, you can rake it over the coals, which is why, on the flip side of this, coming from in comedy, people are like, "Wow, you just played a serial killer in this really bloody movie," and like, it's a dream role because I get to skewer narcissistic, shitty men who like to peacock and show off and lure women with stuff, nice car, my house, my this, my that, because he's also compensating for what he doesn't have and what he is really. But then I get to play the spectrum of that. He's intimidated and terrorized as well as terrorizing, and intimidated as well as intimidating. It's a dream role in that way. So I get to make fun basically of that type of person who, makes a big deal out of telling his date that he knows who some fancy chef is, spouting fancy language, and then gets his ass handed to him. I mean, that's the dream scenario in the concept of feminist dialogue. So anyway, I think that's all to say. I think that's why comedy and horror work so well. And that's not even getting into the congruency of a jump scare being a surprise and a laugh being a surprise. You don't know when you're going to jump out of your seat, and you also don't know like if that thing's going to suddenly surprise you with a laugh, and your endorphins are going to blow out of your ears because you're just loving it so much.
So there's a thrill.
Exactly. I was just gonna throw this question to Aaron, being a comedian. Do you find that being a comedian? Do you find that as a viewer for horror films? Do you kind of take note of the beats that lead up to punchlines? I
mean, there is a reason that I'm the fan, and I like it for the way it makes me feel more than anything else. Yeah. And I talk about that a lot on the podcast. Like, you guys look at it from a technical point of view. I look at it from a how does this make me feel kind of point of view. So yeah, I mean, there's a reason I enjoy the thrill of bringing people with me to the movie house, because I want to see their reaction and react along with them. So it's kind of like the same thing. You bring a friend to a comedy show because you want to laugh with them. You bring someone to a horror movie because you want to get scared with them. So I enjoy it's the thrill. It's the thrill of both that I really enjoy. So
yeah. Well said.
And I do want to work on horror one day because of that. Like, I know it's
you do well with it, Aaron. Yeah,
you would be perfect.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we kind of already segued into A Wounded Fawn. A Wounded Fawn is now on Shudder. It's Josh's latest film. Again, like I use that whole like horror comedy as a segue because this is kind of what you're known for. But like watching this film, I was really taken aback. Like, this is not what I expected. Like, I thought there was going to be a lot of humor. I thought there was going to be. I thought there was going to be a lot of humor, But this is a very serious, very artfully done film. It's dark as fuck. By
is it heavy? There's dark and then there's heavy. Is it heavy?
It is. It's very heavy. It's very. It's a Greek tragedy. It's inspired by Greek tragedies. There are a lot of like symbolism that you take away from Greek mythology. There's the whole storyline of Furies and bad omens, and then comeuppance and then you brought up about there's the whole dynamic of power between men and women and how it kind of switches and it was not what I expected at all. And so by the way, so every year we come up with our own list of our favorite movies of the year, and this year has been so difficult because there's so many good films, and I saw this today, and it's shot up so fast. It's it's easily in my top 5 of the year. It's so beautifully shot, by the way. Like the 16 mil. It's shot, Miguel. It's shot on film. It's 16 millimeter. You see the grain. You see the cigarette burns. You see everything. It's so beautiful, and like I don't know. It reminds me of like early, Dario Argento, like the lighting is like stark red, and it's so dramatic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it was. I think that's why I took to it so much. Maybe because it was not what I expected, and it was it really blew me away. What was it like for
thank
you reading it and being like, yeah, this is not really my usual fare. I want this,
Oh, I mean, that's an awesome question. So this will be interesting for Aaron and Miguel because I'll talk about it without giving away any spoilers. If you get your hands on that VPN, get that VPN scrub. So reading it was so exciting because here comes this director who's known for bloody psychological horrors, or I think Jacob's Wife was. It was more horror comedy skewing, but definitely,
it was horror,
heavy on the blood,
very heavy,
heavy on the horror. And he says, "Hey, I don't know if you're still interested in performing because you're a filmmaker. Would you want to do this?" And I read it, and it's to me, it read like the dream role because again, I get to skewer this piece of shit. He's also it's basically Patrick Bateman at the Evil Dead cabin. But the Deadites are the Greek goddesses of vengeance.
Damn.
So the Cenobites in Hellraiser in this instance are the Araneas, which are goddesses. So that's the spectral entity, and the protagonist becomes the antagonist, and the antagonist kind of not really even becomes the protagonist, but definitely becomes the victim. And that's, I think, why it's shooting to people's top such and such lists is because they're just, it's shot in a way I haven't seen in a while. It's fresh. It's got entities I haven't seen in a while. Protagonist that becomes the antagonist and vice versa. There's so many different layers of it that kind of excite us as horror goers. That's why I'm so excited about it because I think it's going to have a nice long life. On top of the fact that it already says some wonderful shit. I mean, it really has some nice commentary about the dynamic, of abuse between men and women and how women don't know what their situation they're going into when they're going to date a man or date someone that they don't know very well, and they're putting themselves into this danger. Aaron's shaking her head. I mean, and it becomes sort of cathartic to that degree because of what happened. So anyway, that's why it was a dream role. I also knew that when Travis sent it to me, I also got this incredible visual deck. He accompanied it with how he was going to handle the visuals of it all. And that's what really excited me because I saw that this would have an inherent practical effects laden Raimi Giallo-esque approach. It wasn't going to be CGI heavy. It was going to be a lot of in-camera creatures and the costumes. And he said he didn't want to think of it as a horror film, think of it as a fashion film. So the wardrobe is very intricate. The blood is red-orange, kind of Fulci-esque, right? It's like all the details of a fashion film, which is why he hired essentially an artist to be our wardrobe designer, this guy, Eric Bergen, who's just a total genius. You have to follow him on Instagram. So, yeah, I mean, reading it, but I was like, well, great. This is the challenge of a lifetime. People wouldn't often think of me to play the antagonist. I'm, 5'8", and I do comedy. And so that's why it was such an absolute dream.
So Travis Stevens, right? Like, in the NBA, when we talk about rookies, like we always say, like, at some point they got to take a leap. This film, he took a leap, and like this is like from like Jacob's Wife, big fan. He did Girl on the Third Floor, also very good. But this is like this is like levels higher. This is like this was incredible. I'm like seriously blown away. I
agree. Yeah, completely. I totally agree. It's again, I think we're all craving something fresh. We're all, kind of bummed out by the derivative, and this kind of eviscerates. So I'm very curious. I want a sequel where Miguel and Aaron, however long it takes,
we've seen it. Yeah,
we get their take because it's a very different kind of thriller,
We're gonna take you up on that, Josh.
Yeah.
We really want the recap.
And the 50
wanna
other
drop in.
podcasts will.
Yeah. I don't know.
Asking the
I'll
same
make
thing.
the time to cameo on the return. You guys can watch it and tell me what you think. Be like, or even just record your reactions and then I'll send you my recording. Then you can put them together.
That's
I'll
awesome.
do a reaction video to your reaction video.
It's just an inception of reaction videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but I think what you said earlier was that you didn't expect to get a role because you do comedy and I think that the most unassuming looking people are actually the scariest ones. So maybe
Is this from Aaron? Is this
Just in
from
yes, it's from experience. Yes, it's from
from your
experience.
dating experience? Yep.
Yeah, the ones you don't think.
Truly. True. That's why it's like we have in certainly in the States, it's not a meme, but it's like the archetype of nice guy.
Mm.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. That we were
keep saying
cautious
it.
of even. Yeah, we were cautious even on werewolves. Finn had a line where he says, "I'm just a nice guy," and Milana, our star, called it out. Was like, "Just be careful to that's sort of has the opposite meaning."
Right.
Which is so fucking scary, just considering that the temperature of today and just how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor boys are brought up, but anyway, that's a whole other issue. But yeah, I'd be curious, kind of your take.
Yeah.
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Chris, share that VPN
I will.
and
Don't worry about it.
and that account. All right, got it.
I will.
Well, we should do like a in-person screening if you
Wow.
can,
Oh, we should.
and then record the whole reaction thing.
Send it.
How
send it to
far
Josh.
away are you? Are you like
Yeah.
close enough that you can all hang?
Yeah, and
yeah.
we
There
sort
you
of
go.
yeah. The city's kind of opened up also, so it's easy for
Finally.
people to gather now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question I really need to ask you.
Yeah.
So Scare Me. Huge. I'm a huge fan of Scare Me.
I'm a huge fan of
oh.
Ayakash. Ah.
Oh, man,
I love
that's
Ayakash.
exactly where I'm
Yeah.
going.
Go
So
for it.
Scare Me is just like 3 performances for the whole movie. It's incredible. But your dynamic with Ayakash is just incredible. Like you guys are both scary and funny. Like you legitimately scare people and you legitimately make people laugh. But like do you follow The Boys? I'm sure you do. Of course you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What is it like seeing her as this like Nazi villain? Like this absolute
I mean,
worst of humanity kind of
well,
character.
we were very, very lucky casting her and shooting that movie right before she got the role in The Boys, because by the time the movie came out, The Boys was dropping and becoming so popular.
Mhm.
And she was getting all this attention that she hadn't even gotten after being run 5 seasons of a show on FX. You're the worst. Which was,
I
Yeah.
love that show.
which was her.
Yeah.
I mean, that was her vehicle, right? So
Yeah.
now she's a household name because she's playing this, piece of shit. I mean, I wasn't surprised because I saw the spectrum of her talent on Scare Me, because I get to see if she played a jerk, she could play an old man, she could play a vampire, she could go to have a tete-a-tete with my kind of like incel character. I was I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I was also leaning, going like, holy shit. Like, yes, I'm not surprised. She is
Yeah.
so talented and legitimately intimidating. And she's 5'2", 5'3",
Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
still scaring the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved the scene when the girls surrounded her and kicked the shit out of her. I thought that was so fun. And I was like tearing up. Like I was so proud of her. And then I was watching her like, be the villain and also watching her get the shit kicked out of her. I was like,
Yeah.
I was just so, I'm so happy that she's a part of that canon.
Awesome. One of the big things I really want to talk to you about is Shudder.
Yeah,
As a platform,
Yeah.
it's been incredible. As a horror fan, again, like for people in the Philippines, it's pretty hard to find indie movies, or we don't get a lot of that. And Shudder is really it's been a safe haven. But we just heard like there's a bunch of layoffs that are happening. Is there cause to worry?
Well, I think there's cause to be bummed only in the sense that a couple real pillars of the Shudder institution have been let go because of, I think, big AMC's, their parent companies, kind of mismanagement, mishandling of whatever the fuck they were mismanaging and mishandling. And so this independent operation that's critically acclaimed and that is pumping blood into the horror community for some reason, which is simply an appendage of this larger financial institution, is unfortunately paying the price for it because it may be perceived as, say, less important, more of a pet project, whatever the politics of it are. So we sent our condolences, so to speak, to Sean Redlitz, who was their head of marketing, who's just an absolutely wonderful guy. I've known him since Scare Me. Always sending us all the marketing materials on time, high res, giving me, pointing me in the direction of where I can get postcards printed so I can send out mailers to people and stuff. And Craig Angler, who is their general manager of Shudder, they also let him go. But who remains is, still the core day-to-day folks that have been there, the curator, Sam Zimmerman, their head of acquisitions, Emily and Nick. So wonderful. That gives me hope. They are in the news. I mean, every week there are several Shudder movies on several top 10 lists.
Great.
I mean, truly, so I think it's only a matter of time, but they're inevitably they're going to be fine. I think fans would really have a shit show if they just dissipated. It's not like a CISO or a Vessel or a Super Deluxe. Shudder is like a real institution with well north of 1 million, maybe even more than 1 million subscribers. So I think they're going to be fine. It's just it's a total bummer, but I've got high hopes, and I'm so thrilled to work with them, to work with them. I mean, this is my third Shudder film. You can see 3 Josh Ruben projects on Shudder. It's kind of crazy. Yep. So yeah, I know they'll be fine, but it's a bummer in the short term for sure. And if you're listening, you haven't given Shudder a chance, do that free trial even, just go on, try that free trial and tell your buddies, because the curation is out of control.
It's easily for me my favorite streamer, no question. But there's only one thing that I don't like about Shudder. No physical releases. I want Blu-ray copies
not many.
Of everything. Not many.
Not many. There are RLJ. We were very, very fortunate to get a physical release for Scare Me. I kind of still can't believe it. But yeah, I mean, no word on a Wounded Fawn, and that's beautiful. On beautiful 16 mil. No word on Blood Relatives. They'll all be on VOD. I think they inevitably all go on demand. Like my 2 films will go on demand within 6 months. Wounded Fawn and Blood Relatives, which is cool. But hey, even if it's a decade down the line, if those films aren't licensed, but there will be a day, and it'll be on some wonderful media. Yeah, and there'll be, and I know it'll explode. Already, I can tell you right now, if you are itching for some physical media, you should pre-order the soundtrack, which is a vinyl that's going to be available through Waxwork. And our composer on Wounded Fawn, his name is Val. David's his real name, but Vaal, 3 A's. Phenomenal composer. Insane score. You can get it even before seeing the movie, because it's just the stuff that he does with music. His ear is just out of control, so imaginative, so both beautiful, harmonious, and discordant. Really, really killer work. It's so worth checking out. So yeah,
that's funny you brought that up. That's actually one of the questions I want to talk to you about. As a director, you've got a great ear, because I feel Scare Me and Werewolves Within have incredible sound design.
That's everything.
Incredible sound design.
Oh,
I'm so thrilled you're calling that out. What's that?
That's your number one thing, sound design for your film.
Sound design is so crucial for horror and so crucial for comedy. If you crank either of my 2 films, let's call out Werewolves, it's most recent. If you crank that up on your sound bar, you'll hear little floor creaks and little kind of very specific sounds that kind of serve as a punctuation for certain jokes. And I brought certain floor creaks into, just as one example, into Blood Relatives too, where it's like when there's nothing else going on in the scene, but we need a joke, there's just a little bit further you can push it with the sound of the room, with the sound of someone's shout from the audience, with the sound of the ceiling fan coming to a grind, or the way that a seat squeaks. It's like the easiest secret weapon. And no one thinks about it. It just does something to your subconscious where you just kind of giggle. You don't overthink it. You just kind of go. And so is everything. And for horror, I mean, sometimes it's all sound design. I saw something last night that's top secret, but there was no music, and it was just the sound of tape on a window, of something being torn off of a window in almost kind of a rhythm, but there's no other sound. And so the almost visceral kind of vicious tear sound and no music, and you're just kind of in this quiet room with someone, you're just kind of waiting for, oh my God, when is this gonna culminate, or what is this gonna climax to? It's invaluable. I'm so glad you called that out. I mean, Scare Me is completely separately is a sound designer and a composer's movie. That's all we had. We couldn't afford props, So
you could hear snow crunch and the floorboards and
it's everything.
Incredible. That's awesome. Cool.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So I still have a bunch of questions, but we're way over time. Aaron or Miguel, please feel free.
No, I'm enjoying this whole horror nerd out between two big nerds.
We're roping you in. We're trying to seduce you in here.
Okay.
Miguel. You better get to it.
I got a big question before anything else.
Yeah.
Being from the Philippines, have you seen any Asian horror that you like?
Ooh, what did I see that I want to say, I'm going to mispronounce it. Norai, The Curse.
Noroi, so good.
Noroi is really intense.
Found footage,
And The Pool.
I have not
heard about it. But Noroi's the one with is it?
No, Noroi is the one
with the alligator in the swimming pool.
The Japanese.
Oh, yeah, we saw
the
that.
Japanese, found footage film. Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah.
I need to do way better. Travis just presented Oni Baba that I'm really dying to see, although I think that might be a hornier film than a scarier film in black and white.
Hey, what's the title? What?
It's called Oni Baba, Onibaba.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
How about the classics? Like, have you seen the original Ring?
I haven't seen Ringu, which is criminal. I know that one is
It's a bit criminal.
It's a bit criminal. Shindo. Shindo did Onibaba. And oh gosh, there was the host. The host was killer. The one
good.
that was years ago, but I love the host.
It's good.
Great creature feature.
Incredible.
I mean, tell me, what are the ones you recommend? Who are some are there ones in the Philippines especially? Are there local filmmakers that you love? Or what are the ones that are your top few? Yeah.
Well, I think Japanese J-horror is definitely like
J-horror is it for you? Yeah.
That's definitely tier one. I feel.
Yeah.
Korean horror is I think getting to tier one.
But J-horror is like right there. That's the one.
Yeah, like Ringu I think
is like
is one of the scariest films ever made. Easily.
Wow.
Like I'm a big fan of the remake of but it is but a speck in the ocean compared to Ringu.
Wow. Okay. I gotta check it out. Oh, maybe I'll wait till my wife's out of town so I don't totally traumatize her.
So how I experienced Ringu was there was a big we have a big festival here called Cine Manila in the Philippines, and then they just screen a whole bunch of stuff from all around Asia. It's an Asian film fest, and then for this one particular thing, it was just nothing but horror. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, if you guys are insane, watch Ringu 1, 2, 3."
Oh, in one go. I remember.
In one go.
I remember this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my friend was like, "Hey, dude, you're a big Stephen King fan. I heard this is fun. Just go." Oh my God, 6 hours straight, just like
not fun.
Oh, it was.
No, he
fun.
loved it.
It is.
It was fun, but it was just like,
oh yeah,
but like
it was an
intense.
experience. Yeah, it was
I
incredible.
couldn't even get through. I was invited to, or I gotten tickets to Hellraiser on 35 mil, the original print, and Hellraiser 2. And I
Back
had to
to
leave
back,
after
yeah.
Hellraiser 1, but it would have been back to back. And I'm so glad I didn't. It's a very different experience, but Hellraiser 2 is so rich and fantastical. It's almost like eating too much cake. It's like, ooh, that first one, the first few bites are good. And it's like, oh my God, I'm eating a whole chocolate, like multi-layered chocolate frosted cake. So I saved it for another screening. My buddy who I went to, we both snuck out for the second one. But it's reminding me of that. It's like, maybe if you can do them in pieces, then I'm willing to try. Okay, that's on my list. You're gonna have to send me a list. Miguel and Aaron, you're gonna need to see these movies, and I'm gonna need to get that reaction
It's a fair
video.
trade-off, yeah.
We'll just go to Chris's house. And
Yeah, so you have to go to Chris's house. Send me that picture. Put up on Insta.
We will.
Yeah. Guys, it was such a pleasure to speak with all of you. I can't, I could nerd out with you all day. We're gonna have to pick it up again.
Yeah.
It was
was fun,
awesome,
Josh. This was fun.
This was such an honor. It was so much fun. I'm so glad I was awake at the time that you sent the tweet out, because I was just like, oh, I gotta email him immediately.
I would have said it no matter what. I would have agreed.
You should have heard the chat group when he was able to get you to see.
I was like messaging them at 3 a.m. I was like, guys.
and it was so close to sending. He was so close to sending a video. He doesn't do that, but so
Yeah.
tell he was
what an honor.
So,
No,
Anyway.
well, hit me, please. Hit me anytime, and
Will do.
enjoy the films if you get to see them. And it was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Josh.
thank you so much, Josh.
Have a
Thank
good
you
day,
all.
Josh.
Get some
great day.
some sleep. Don't have any more beer. Well, you can do
Okay.
one more.
We're fine.
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us on this episode. And for everybody listening, that was Josh Ruben, comedian, director, actor, and writer. So be sure to watch out for his movies. And of course, before we go, I'd like to remind everyone again to please join our Facebook group, Dead Air, a Horror Podcast, to discuss anything horror related. And you can also follow our page of the same name, Dead Air, a Horror Podcast. And of course, follow our social media. We have a Instagram that you can follow and DM at Dead Air Pod. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and have a great day or night or evening, whatever time you're listening to this podcast. And bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.